Hi all, sending huge love to everyone in these changing times. With over 2 million Australians facing unemployment, the way many households manage our spending has changed significantly since the breakout of the coronavirus. So this week we thought it would be useful to share some tips and support in this area. So while we acknowledge that everyone is in vastly different circumstance, and while we can't provide specific advice for your personal circumstance, and always encourage you to seek professional financial advice before making major financial decisions, we can, in an educational and generic nature, share some tips, tools, and personal experiences to help manage your cash flow in these changing times. So, while some may have a healthy emergency buffer, maybe 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in savings, most Australian households have less than 6 weeks' income in the bank. Now, with or without a savings buffer, the duration of this global crisis is so largely unknown. And while some may be feeling the impacts sooner and more strongly than others, very few of us will escape some sort of financial burden in over the coming weeks, months, and years. So as a nation, we have already made an effort to pivot how we work. The schools have embraced e-learning, and there's been an explosion in the take-up of home workout programs. So we're all adjusting to a new normal, and we may need to make some adjustments for our spending as well. So here are some tips. And of course, if you want more resources and specific information on what government support is available over this time, please visit the Verve Super Coronavirus Hub. And we have a lot of articles and guides there, and the links are in the supporting document and comments below. So, first of all, we need to adjust our income and savings. So this first step to adjusting your spending is to determine what income and savings we have available. So to the best of your ability, write a list of everything that you have available to you. So this might be what you expect your income to be, taking into account changes to employment, maybe loss of hours, business loss, loss of contracts, or job loss. And be sure to include any government support payments which you might be entitled to. So once you have written a list of what you expect your income to be over the coming time, then consider whether or not you might have any savings that you could tap into, and these additional savings could help supplement your income over this time. So the next step is to make a list of your must-haves and nice-to-haves. So you may already be tracking your spending and categorizing it, maybe through an app or a spreadsheet, and there's some really good tools available on the moneysmart.gov.au site. They have a spending tracker or a budget planner that is available as an online tool, as a spending app, and as a downloadable Excel worksheet, and has a lot of different details in the expenses and in the income sections to help us think through what really are our expenses over this time. So it's also, if you have not traditionally been a budgeter, or someone who sort of tracks or watches your spending, this is an incredibly useful financial well-being tool that you can continue beyond this crisis. So some of your must-haves might include things like housing, keeping a roof over your head, bills paid, food on the table, medical and other health costs, and other fixed expenses, maybe phone and internet plan and insurance, financial commitments. Some of your nice to haves might be clothing, hobbies and entertainment, personal care, recreation, dining out, etc. And also don't forget to list your regular expenses, maybe like car registration, insurance, maybe school fees, etc. So obviously we're not really dining out all that often, or personal care is a bit harder to access if you can't DIY at home. And so naturally some of these nice to haves will be curbed in our life, but it's incredibly useful, and especially if you're feeling a sense of financial stress, to actually burn through that cloud of worry or unknown and really put some thought into finding out the facts. It can lift a huge cloud off your shoulders and be an incredibly freeing and relieving exercise to know exactly where you're at from an income perspective and from an expense perspective. And from there, we can go on to the next step, which is to make changes and adjustments to cope with whatever we're going through in our life and financial world right now. So our intention at a time like this is to preserve as much as your income and savings as possible. Of course, easier said than done, but as I've said a million times before, I've seen people go through extraordinary financial hardship and come through the other end shinier, more focused, more driven, and with the ability to pay off huge amounts of debt and build huge amounts of savings that they never actually thought was possible. So just know through this time that even if you are feeling like you will never get through this, and that it's just too big to even get your head around, that this too shall pass. And the more we break it down into bite-sized pieces, the more we'll be able to process the change that we're going through and make some really conscious decisions around what we're going to do about our situation. So in terms of making changes, go through your must-have items and irregular expenses and consider where you can reduce costs. So as I said before, already some of our more social related costs are no longer, but of course there are lots of options as well. So discussing rental payments with your landlord, mortgage repayments with your bank, talking to your bank or financial service provider about consolidating different debts, have lower or no interest rate periods, and extending the payback period on any outstanding bills with your utility providers. Most organizations will be able to provide some added assistance over this period and provide you with some support and options and next steps. Even if you have to wait a while on the phone, acknowledging also that these institutions and the government included are also trying to facilitate and keep their call center staff safe, etc. So everyone is in this together, and with a bit of patience, you will finally, get through to the providers that you need to, and there will be some solutions that you can come up with and put into place. So go through your bank statements for the last 3 months and have a bit of a look at things like subscriptions. So maybe, some of us have entertainment subscriptions such as Netflix and Spotify that are ongoing. There might also be some that you've forgotten about. So combing through your bank statements over the last 3 months or so, you might be able to identify a few other things that aren't critical at the moment, that they might be recurring payments, but they're not relevant. And you can also, same as the banks and landlords and utility providers, Also, many companies have hardship policies in place, and so are likely to, allow you to make arrangements or cancellations at this time. And of course, remember that being ruthless with your spending now doesn't mean that we will have to do this forever. And when the situation improves, we'll be able to, go back to enjoying those nice to haves on your list. But for now, once you have determined, we've looked at our income, we've looked at our expenses, we've broken down our expenses into needs and nice to haves. Now we want to make a plan and test it. And now that you'll know what your spending limits are, and acknowledging that this is your crisis spending plan, it's not your forever spending plan, as we said. Spend the next couple of weeks really, seeing if it's too restrictive or not restrictive enough. And it's incredible when you do put your awareness on your spending, how resourceful humans can be, and how naturally, when it's your intention to work it out and to, manage what you have most effectively, it's incredible how what can come into play to make your plan happen. So once you've dived in to maybe some initial discomfort, know that there will be rewards at the end. So as we said before, these are really valuable skills that we can take with us into the future. And instead of working out, a crisis spending plan, in the future we can apply these same principles to a money goal like a house deposit or an adventure. So the next step is to realign our goals. Many of us in 2020 started out with bold, new, exciting goals. But of course, things haven't quite turned out how we expected. So you might not be able to go on that overseas trip or start that business, but it doesn't mean stop dreaming. I know that my husband and I were planning on building our dream home, an eco home on the rest of my family farm this year. But of course, that was dependent on us selling a little unit that we bought when we were first married, and that might not be possible now. So it doesn't mean that dream is gone. It just means that we may need to extend the time frames and be a bit more flexible around how that might be able to play out, or how we might be able to stage that over time. So don't throw all your dreams out the window. Maybe it's a chance to relook at some of your plans and intentions and treat this period as a break in time where you can think about, okay, well, what is possible? Maybe you've got time to learn a new language, or perfect time to learn to meditate, or can you put a savings plan in place to, afford a post-coronavirus road trip? Everyone will have different dreams and goals, and they might not be the dreams and plans that we first imagined even a few weeks ago, but they can be just as fulfilling and incredibly important for us to have some motivation and joy to help us both structure our finances as well as keep our spirits buoyed and our lives moving forward. So on that note, think about what is your number one action step for this week. So taking a breath, letting some of this information digest, either write in the comments below or on a piece of paper, or tell your partner or a friend or family member, right, this week I'm going to take this action and make these changes, or get some more awareness around this and start to make a bit of a reviewed spending plan. And use the support available to you. So while the impacts of this crisis are really different for everyone, we're all in this together. And it's an opportunity to pair up with a bit of a money mate or someone you can share some money tips and your experience, or even just someone to open up to around any money stress you may be experiencing. And of course, there are support services available. We'll also put all these links in the comments below. Free financial counselling via the National Debt Hotline. You can contact Lifeline and Beyond Blue if you're experiencing distress, or 1-800-RESPECT if you're at risk of family violence. So having a plan, having the support around you, keeping these hopefully relatively short-term challenges in perspective can help us adjust to these challenging and uncertain times. And of course, as we said, if you feel really stuck, be sure to speak with a financial planner and keep asking questions to all your providers, to all your trusted network, until you find the answers that you need to make the best next steps for you. So take care, stay well, and we're here to support you in this group through these challenges. See you next week.